Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Hanson here. In this video, I am going to model how to assess the reflection essays submitted for each of the virtual simulations. I am going to use Lab 8 as an example of how I would go about grading a reflection essay. So first of all, welcome to class 1520. What I'm going to do is to just open the content, and I'm going to choose module 8. That's the stoichiometry virtual simulation, and open that module for us. As you know, each module has their stoichiometric calculations lab manual, but each one of the separate simulations has its own lab manual that you can click to open. So when I open that document, you find the lab manual beginning with the title, the synopsis, learning objectives, theory, and so forth. Where I want to focus is the learning objectives for the reflective essay assignment. So at the end of this simulation, students should be able to, and then there is a list of outcomes. This is the focus that I've told the students to create their essay from. Show evidence or details, support that they have mastered and how they have mastered each of these. So what I've done is kind of created a list, a bulleted list, to begin the feedback section as we grade our reflections. So using the learning objectives from the lab module, I opened a Word document, and what I've done is just said, here are the key points to include in the reflection. So these bulleted points are just my summary of what each of those learning objectives and how they are being used to measure learning. So explain the relationship between mass, molecular weight, and the number of atoms, and how they can be calculated. Explain how to perform a mass-mass stoichiometric conversion. Explain how to identify the limiting and excess reagents. Explain how to calculate a percent yield of a reaction, and using Avogadro's number. So kind of the highlighted learning bullets from Lab Module 8. Knowing that, I'm going to slide this aside for a second, knowing that we are assessing using a holistic rubric, I want to emphasize that a holistic rubric is different than an evaluative rubric. Holistic rubric simply means I believe that this essay is going to score a level 1, a level 2, so new level. So this would be highest level. Level 4 would be like a B. Here's a C, D, and not credit. So over to the scoring rubric, the highest level would be what I would consider an A essay. The second choice I would consider a B overall. Here's the C choice, the D, and then no credit. You can see there is a description underneath each part of the holistic scoring rubric. The highest level reads the paragraph is clear, focused, developed, and addresses each of the learning goals stated from the lab manual document. It provides relevant details and/or antidotes and word choice, supports and enriches the central ideas. In your opinion, this is a well-written essay that addresses the learning goals. So what makes the difference between an A and a B? Well, in a B paper, in my opinion, in your opinion as the grader, the response is clear and focused. The ideas are related to the purpose, but somewhat sketchy or overly general in their details. So that's the key. Relevant details and/or anecdotes, word choices support the topic, but they are limited in supporting evidence. So in my mind, an A paper provides ample detail in supporting evidence, and a B paper may sometimes, but not always, address the learning goals. They might sometimes, but not always, provide clear and supporting evidence of how they mastered. So there is a distinction between an A and a B simply with supporting evidence and details, or perhaps maybe some of the learning goals were not addressed. But again, this is a holistic score. So you're thinking, okay, A paper or a B paper. You don't need to find certain criteria. You're the judge. What about a C paper? Level 3. So in this type of response, the paragraph does not maintain focus or organization throughout. The ideas are very minimally related to the learning goals. As a reader, you would make inferences based on sketchy details or inaccurate or non-specific word choices. So they've written a paragraph 250 words long, but not necessarily provided much detail or evidence at all related to the lab. D's, I would suspect, will be very rare. It's just disorganized, unfocused, not related. And then a choice E would be, of course, if they submit garbage. So D's and E's, I suspect, will be rare, I hope. I would suspect most will be A's. And if the paragraphs are just too general, probably a B. And if the paragraph is just off topic, doesn't include many of the learning goals at all, probably a C. So that's the difference in holistic scoring. You are judging this is an A, a B, or a C based on the details and supporting evidence, the flow of the paragraph, the quality of the writing, making it an A. Lack of that, you decide if it's a B or a C. And you simply will add on to the paper that says, if you believe it to be an A, your reflection essay can be has addressed each of these learning objectives with ample detail and supporting evidence. Your paragraph flowed well and was clearly focused. If you are assigning a B, you'll add this particular comment. Your reflection essay has addressed the learning objectives, but were overly general in their description. Challenge yourself to add more depth and detail in supporting evidence of how you mastered each of the learning objectives. And choice C, your reflection essay did not maintain focus or the learning objectives and did not provide clear details providing mastery. So with this document, I have what I need to provide feedback, and let me model a few just by going through some sample submissions. The first thing in this rubric asks us to write out the title for the lab. Is it there? Yes or no? Well, clearly I see stoichiometric calculations. This person will receive 1 out of 1 points for having the title. The second criteria is that the name and date, the student's name and date, appears at the top of the page, and clearly Colin included his name and date, full credit. Is there a minimum of 250 words? And again, that would be about half a page if they did not skip lines. So this clearly meets the word goal. If you're unsure, you can copy and paste into a Word document and it will tell you how many words there are. So for example, in this document, I can see down here that I've written 179 words. See that down in the corner, the left corner? So that gives you an idea of what 180 words looks like. So clearly Colin has given us 250 words. But again, if you think it's unclear, I don't need it to be exactly 250. You just want a thorough essay, full credit. That's 5 out of 5 points. So it's 0, you did not write 250 words, or about. It's a goal. It doesn't have to be exact. But certainly if they're off by 50 words or more, they get 0 points. Now this part of the rubric is going to be where you decide, is this essay an A, a B, or a C? Let's read it. In this lab, we learned the meaning of Avogadro's number and how it was used to calculate moles. Well, that first opening sentence clearly addresses the learning objective. Then he goes on to tell me what the mole is. It represents the number of atoms in a given substance. With this, we convert atomic mass to grams, to moles, and use the equation. So I'm really loving this. He's giving us the details of the learning objective and how you perform the calculations. Once you obtain the answer, we now have our units in moles. When we use moles, we multiply it by Avogadro's number. Wonderful. That's one of the learning objectives. Perfect. After learning and understanding the formulas, we proceed to conduct our lab to discover the missing chemical inside the bottle with its label partially torn off. Off the bottle and with part of its label missing, we could read that contained chlorine. We just needed to discover the one missing alkaline earth metal inside of it. I'm just kind of skimming. By conducting a gravimetric analysis, we conducted the analyte by using silver with chlorine on the burner. Silver became the excess product. The chlorine was the limiting reagent. Okay, beautiful, because this was important for the learning objective. Those terms needed to be talked about. The limiting and excess reagent was our learning goal, and here they appear in his paragraph. We could then vacuum into the film paper and obtain the unknown chemical's mass on the scale. With our new atomic mass, we used our equations of Avogadro's number to determine the missing element, and again, related to how. Therefore, the magnesium was our mystery chemical. So, review after reading, did he meet all of these learning objectives? What I'm finding is that I didn't see how to calculate mass-mass stoichiometric conversions, and I don't hear how to calculate percent yield of a reaction either. So most of these learning objectives were addressed, and very well, but not all. And I think that percent yield and performing the calculation, how to perform a mass-mass calculation, were both missing. So based on that, I'm going to say B. And good grammar and spelling throughout. Down here in the feedback, I always start by typing the student's name, Colin. And then from my document, I am going to copy and paste the key points that must be present so he can see that. And then for the B paper, I am going to give him the feedback of what a B is. Your reflection essay has addressed the learning objectives, but were overly general in their description. You know what? I don't even like that sentence so much, so I'm going to change that to say, your reflection essay addressed most, but not all, of the learning objectives. I don't see the terms let's say, I'd like to see, or let's see, challenge yourself to include comments relating to all listed objectives from the lab manual. So you can certainly create a little summary here that best fits the essay that you just wrote. So the terms and again, I'm going back to say what I'd like to see more discussion on the process of calculating mass problems and theoretical, I'll put it as percent yield. These were learning objectives missing from your essay. Now, what you can also do, of course, as you grade a formal lab report, is include these very comments in your overall, in your comments as well. So this would be an example of a holistic grading score. Does this student's essay paper address all of the learning goals? Well, it addressed certainly most of them, but not all. So I'd call this a B paper. And I'm just going to save that as a draft so you can go back and look at that in the course yourself. What about one more? Here's a student's essay. And let's go through the scoring rubric and decide how we should score this. It has a title at the top, full credit. It has the student's name and date, full credit. This listed as a 250-word essay, yeah, it's at least half a page. I don't care if it's exact, but it is thorough enough. But as I read the first step, this first paragraph, it's off topic, isn't it? My steps for the lab are first to balance the equation that was given to me by adding numbers. Then I put the weighing dish inside the analytical balance and press tare. As I read this paragraph, this isn't a summary of learning, it's a summary of the procedure. Again, I always start by typing the student's name correctly. The first paragraph is off topic. The reflection essay does not ask to summarize the procedure, but rather to summarize your learning based on the learning objectives published in the manual. So that means I'm going to just disregard this entire first paragraph and look for the learning objectives in the second paragraph. This is a good sentence to start. In this lab, I learned a lot of different things that I'll be talking about. Okay, that's an introductory paragraph. Atoms, molecules, how to calculate the molecular weight, and gravimetric analysis. Okay, so that's just a list of terms. I learned that atoms and molecules can only be counted by the mass because they are too small to be seen. That's very good. How to calculate the molecular weight is another thing I learned. First, I'm going to explain what each N, M, and M are and how to calculate. First, N represents moles, and its equation would be multiply the molar mass by mole, and that will give you the number of moles. Well, that actually should be divide, not multiply. Second, M represents the mass in its calculation, and that would give you mass. Third, M represents molar mass, and its calculation would be to divide M, and that will give you the molar mass. Okay, so that to me is very unclear. So to me, this is a C. The response does not maintain focus. The organization is very sketchy. That's a C. Remember, we tossed out the first paragraph? Now, to give them feedback, remember, go back to the learning goals. These are the key points that I must see. So I'm going to include those in every part of the feedback. So again, I'm just making sure that this is coming from the learning manual. Key points to include in the reflection taken from the lab manual. And then remember that this was lacking. So I would say your reflection did not maintain focus on the learning goals. We can make this formatted a little nicer if we want. So a little bigger. Your reflection did not maintain focus on the learning objectives and did not provide clear details. Several of them, and I would even add that, several learning objectives were not addressed. And again, I'll save this as draft so you can go back and modify if needed. So this reflective essay is probably not that good, sorry to say. Shall we find another? Here's a student's reflection essay. So again, using the rubric, I see a title, I see the name and date, and it's not double spaced, so that's probably 250 word goal, that's fine. So let's look at the holistic scoring. Come to think of it, let me save this as a draft. I might have missed on this last one. I did grammar and spelling. I'm going to put that as fine. So don't forget to complete all the parts of the rubric. That one reminded me there. So I learned a lot of new things regarding stoichiometric calculation in this labster. I also learned why it's important to know how to use gravimetric analysis in order to identify the amount of analyte in a compound based on its mass. I learned why it's important, but she didn't really provide evidence of learning. I reviewed how to balance the equation. I also reviewed how to calculate theoretical yield. I would love to learn more about stoichiometric calculations because it interests me. It didn't cover it too much, but I still struggle a bit to find the limiting and excess reagent. The challenge I faced in this lab, that's very good. I got the hang of it in the end. I was also challenged by the concept. I can also use this information to address. So what I'm hearing is a little bit of explanation about each of the learning goals. And again, start with their name. And what we'll do is put in these key points, reflecting on the learning objectives. And what do you think? Did she actually cover each of the learning objectives and provide ample detail of mastery? To me, this would be between an A and a B. What should we do? Go back to the learning objectives and say, do you find the terms mass, molar mass, and number of atoms? Yes. Do you find discussion about stoichiometric conversions? Yes. Stoichiometric calculations. Explain how to identify limiting and excess reagent. I see that addressed right here. Explain to calculate percent yield. So again, I see that discussed. Right here, destroyed or ruined labels. That's kind of a good use of it, isn't it? I like that. In the end, through the challenge of concept, apply the concept Labster. Again, I'm not clearly seeing this last one, but I don't think it's enough to break an A paper. And I really liked the flow of this. So I think this definitely is thinking about that, is that the A paper had nice flow. It hit on most, if not all, the learning objectives. Again, it's fine to omit one, just trying to make sure that you have a nice reflection. Is it an A paper? I believe it is. In grammar and spelling, this student is going to earn 50 out of 50. Save draft. So I'm going to conclude. I've done 3 of these. Ultimately, what's important for you as the grader is to determine in your mind what an A, a B, and a C paper look like. And I would recommend doing that by going through several papers at first, saving draft, and then you can kind of sort through good ones, medium ones, and poorly written ones and award an A, a B, or a C. All right, that concludes this tutorial video. Thank you.